My name is Gwendal Patat. I'm a postdoc at Fraunhofer in Germany. And today I will be talking about formal security analysis of Widevine through the W3C EME standard, which is one of the last work that I've done with my co-author during my PhD. So today we'll be talking about over-the-top platform, or OTT for short. We all know about them. There are service providers that will give you access to some movie based on some subscription fee. Here I put obviously the main player, Netflix, but also Prime Video and Disney+. And the thing is, with this kind of service provider, there are actually really specific security involved. Because here, for instance, we will have a user that is actually subscribed to the service and will ask them for its favorite movie. But here we have to take into account a really particular attacker model, because here a legitimate user is actually a potential attacker. We are talking about someone subscribed to the service, but who has full device control, and his goal is not to circumvent, for instance, the payment method, but really to redistribute your product for free, or maybe to consume it in like indefinite amount of time. And to avoid that, OTT platforms are relying on what we call digital rights management system, or DRM for short. Here also the main players are like Microsoft with PlayReady, Apple FairPlay, and Google Widevine, which is the subject of this talk. But here it's just like cryptographic system underlying in everyone's devices, so your phone, your smart TV, maybe even your VR headsets. So it's like a really big thing. And behind this kind of crypto, it's just a really simple principle. So for instance, you will have your user device, and depending on what it is, you will have a custom root of trust of the DRM system. For instance, if your phone is a Pixel, you will have a Widevine root of trust pre-installed. In a really, really simplified way, with two other entities, which are the content server and the license server, you will have like a kind of a discussion between the two. You will ask for a specific movie since you're subscribed, like the Netflix server, for instance, will give it to you gladly, but in an encrypted form, and you will be able to grasp the metadata of the device, of the actual content, to ask and generate a license request and send it to a license server. This license server is compatible with your DRM system and will gladly give you the encrypted key that you will be able to like do whatsoever, and the magic happen, and you can actually watch a movie. But the thing is that there is a lot of device, there is a lot of DRM system out there, and when the OTT server are sending you protected content, you will not be always on the same devices. And for instance, they will all communicate with their own DRM system, so like Apple, Microsoft, and whatsoever. And of course, to help us analyze that, everything happens in a really proprietary mechanisms, everything is closed source, and we don't really know what's going on inside. But obviously, OTT do not want to change their code every time that they send you media, so thanks and like comes to the rescue what we call EME. EME stands for Encrypted Media Extension. It's actually an API extension from HTML5, and it's here to kind of standardize a generic API for all DRM systems. And it's now implemented in all major browsers, both mobile and desktop, and it's like kind of a really just a hollow protocol. Because the thing is that we have actually two workflows in this protocol, which is first the license acquisition. So the main actor here are actually your browser in the middle with the EME API. The DRMs on the right are actually the one installed in your actual device. And on the left, you will have the OTT/license server. And when you will receive an encrypted media, you will extract the data that you need to actually initialize the DRM system. For us, it will be, for instance, Widevine. But starting from here, the EME protocol is not defining anything. It will just like pass some messages as a fully opaque blob to the actual license server. And the license server compatible will also respond in a fully opaque way for EME and just give it to Widevine, for instance. The magic will happen, and at this point, all the cryptographic key needed to play the media will be like initialized, and you'll be able to decrypt the frame of your movie. The second workflow defined by EME is kind of the direct follow-up of this one, which is called the license renewal. At some point, you will be watching your movie, but maybe the license is close to expiration, and you want to be able to finish your 3 hours long Lord of the Ring, So you need to actually resend proactively a renewal request to the license server and receive the according response to just continue the thing. But the thing is, today we'll be talking about Widevine because we need to actually have something to analyze in all these opaque blobs. Widevine is the actual DRM system owned by Google, and it's one of the most deployed ones since it will be also found in Chrome browser, so obviously like a really big player. As I say, it's closed source and opaque, and what we wanted to know is actually like what about the security of this opacity? Because there is some things in the EME standard that are security concerns, but they are focused on user security and privacy as a web server, which is super nice, but not like what we want as an OTT, because here we actually want to protect our media and not the user. If you're interested in protecting the user privacy, we have a magnificent paper at PETS that we presented last year on fingerprinting of this. But here we're talking about media security, and like as an OTT, we needed to define new goals for this kind of thing. It's not in the actual standard. So our contribution was actually to define such security goals for media consumption that could apply to all media DRM systems based on the EME API. So we actually took the Widevine DRM and we did some reverse engineering on it to be able to define this goal based on our observation and to provide a kind of formal analysis. Of course, we find some cool stuff because otherwise it would be boring. And we also propose the fix to the EME protocol. So as an OTT, our goal would be actually to protect our media and not the user, and also to control its distribution and consumption. So based on that, there is a pretty straightforward goal that comes into mind is actually the general one. You just want to be sure that you keep your decryption key confidential, like in a confidential way, and therefore your media itself. But after that, we kind of divided our security goal into two, with the first for the license acquisition. You want to be sure that the license that is received by the DRM that you are like talking to will receive your license like in a fully untouched way, and also that it's be sure that it's you that sent it. You want it to be fresh, you don't want someone to replay your actual license, and you want to enforce the expiration time of the device. You don't want someone to start watching a movie, stop paying a subscription, and actually continue watching the movie. And the same actually apply for the renewal request with exactly the same goal, with more specific detail in the paper due to like a lot of different detail in the message. So to verify this, we use the TAMARIN prover, which is a symbolic protocol verification tool that is perfect for this kind of things, since it's like really well made for everything that is stateful. And this API is actually using a lot of counter, a lot of cryptographic key that need to be kept alive, and it was perfect for this kind of analysis. But the thing is that it needs rules to be verified, and since we are in an opaque way, we need to actually fit it with something. So what we've done is actually to do some reverse engineering on Widevine with a kind of a setup like this. So we use actually a license server used, like provided by Widevine for test of vendor integration of their DRM. And we kind of instrument our own library to intercept all the call to the EME hooks. We were therefore able to observe, but also to tamper with every function calls to kind of extract the meaning of all messages, but also see what was what. So signature, everything. But we are also able to tamper with some syscall to be sure of our findings. And with that, we had kind of a message with really beautiful colors here. So we were able to kind of identify the signature, identify the hash, maybe also some TLV value, and we were able to feed this in our TAMARIN rules. So it was kind of a back and forth reverse and also writing of the rules to be sure that everything was coherent and working. And we had some challenges here because in Widevine there is a lot of cryptographic key, of course, that was to be expected, but also a lot of nonces and timestamps that are used for freshness and license expiration. And since our goals are really relying on this kind of things, we wanted to implement it in TAMARIN. But TAMARIN is based on event ordering, so like it's actually putting one after another the actual event that are happening in the protocol, but there is no notion of time. So we needed to actually kind of trick the thing with a kind of a global clock to be able to have an adversary, like an attacker that could just like wait for the license to expire, for instance. And with that, we run actually our tool, and we found some problem inside our goals. So everything related to authenticity, but also as the enforcement of expiration time, especially due to renewal license, was kind of buggy. So we took a look closer at the actual Widevine key letter that has been predefined in previous work. And what we have actually is, like, at first, we have the root of trust of the device. That is actually just like device IRISA certificates. And when you are actually asking for a license, you will receive a session key that you will be like able to decrypt. And this session key is actually used to derive some intermediary keys that we call the asset key, which is the one that we derive the license key, which is the one to gain access to the movie. So already a lot of keys for kind of, we don't know, for nothing, but still. And it's not like the only thing. Actually, the session key is not only used for the key, intermediary key of decryption, but also for two keys that are related for integrity check. So a MAC client key and a MAC server key. They will be used in the protocol to check if the license that the DRM system is receiving is actually has not been tampered with. But the thing was that the actual reverse that is done, and when we feed the root to TAMARIN, we see that the session key was actually encrypted but never signed. And with that, we had a big problem because the session key was actually processed, and therefore the key were actually derived before even checking for the authenticity of the license response. So it led to the Widevine EME key derivation attack that is kind of straightforward. Everything will happen in the normal way until that you receive your actual response. Here, you will derive the actual keys necessary to process everything and to watch your movie. And at some point, you will ask to extend the actual expiration time of your key. But here, an attacker can just create its own key, its own session key, encrypt it with the public key of the actual DRM and send it to the actual device. And here, since the actual session key is processed before even checking the integrity, the key here will be overwrite, even if the register fail. So you will still be able to actually use the actual content key, but everything related to integrity check will be overwritten. So at this point, you can just forge license renewal responses that will be accepted, and you can extend your actual movie indefinitely and watch the all three movie of Lord of the Rings. And that's pretty cool. So a basic modification was that we could just say just fix Widevine, but since Widevine is actually used in a broad of devices and each vendor is actually implementing it on its own, we wanted to tackle the root cause, which is maybe the EME specification, to leverage the old API that they have. They actually provide something called the set server certificate, and it could be used to actually bind the actual session open in the DRM to a distant server. With that, you will be able to have a strong crypto binding between the two, and you just need after that to force the actual signature of everything and the verification of it before being used, of course. And so some takeaway, we have our artifact that is available, but for security impact, we have found some flaw in the Widevine EME protocol. We also defined some generic goals that could be used for future DRM inspection. And we obviously gave our TAMARIN model of the proof of concept and open access on GitHub. For some responsible disclosure, we contacted the Widevine team, but since it's Widevine, they did not respond. It's kind of a love story between the two of us. And we contacted also EME on February, and they were actually discussing the patch between them, and they will do a follow-up on this kind of protocol and standard. Thank you for listening to me, and I'll be happy to answer some questions.